The best bets you could put your money on for the wild card weekend. We're ranking the top 4 bets, and we're not doing it now, but we're doing it right now. Let's start with bet number 4. We'll rank it in backwards order so you get smacked with number 1 right at the end, you beautiful fellas out there. The playoffs are here. So bet number 4 this week is going to be Kansas City and Pittsburgh. For me personally, under 46. I'm fine if you want to take Kansas City minus 12.5 as well. I'm close to adding that as a 5th bet, but Kansas City and Pittsburgh under 46.5. So Pittsburgh has only cleared 46 once in the past 2 months, right? And it was a game where they had a comeback, that weird night game against the Vikings where they almost pulled it off at the end of that game. They even played Kansas City earlier this year, and Kansas City drops 36 on them, but Pittsburgh is only able to score 10. I mean, this Pittsburgh offense, every week that goes by, right? We were just taking the Chargers. It would have been so much better, these playoff matchups right here. But every single week that goes by, Pittsburgh struggles more and more on offense because Ben is getting older and older. Players on their offense are getting more and more hurt. So over the last 2 months, they're averaging 42.5 total points per game, including their opponents, and that is massively skewed by a 64-point total game against the Minnesota wacky primetime Monday Night Football type game. The only advantages in this game, if you break it down by special teams, overall defense, and in specific matchups, and offense in specific matchups, there's only like 3 advantages I can find. I use Cold Hard Football Facts to help me as well. Those advantages were for defense for Pittsburgh. The defensive line, I think that makes a lot of sense. Cam Hayward and really TJ Watt are the sacks leader now. Asterisk with 18 games, what are you going to do? Or 17 games in 18 weeks. Come on, Sal, what are you doing? And then Pittsburgh is better than Kansas City at limiting the passer rating of the opposing quarterbacks and the yards per attempt of the passing quarterbacks. And it's not even by that much because Kansas City's defense the last half of the year was trending in the right direction. So that's all they got. That's all they've got. And then you look at Kansas City's side of the ball, and I mean, when they beat the Steelers by 26 earlier in the year, and not much has changed for the Steelers since then. Like, arguably nothing has changed. TJ Watt has gotten healthier. That's about it. Whereas Kansas City, their entire offense, since they beat the Steelers by a lot, their entire offense has continued to improve. They have continued to figure out how to get the running game going to an extent, how to get out of these cover 2 high looks that they're seeing and take advantage of those. And by the way, the Steelers secondary will not be really that scary for Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, not at all. And the biggest advantage, right? The biggest advantage for the Steelers in this game is probably the fact that they have a TJ Watt on the defensive line, but then you look at the Kansas City offensive line and it ranks number 1. Number 1 offensive line index this year is the Kansas City Chiefs. It is that simple. It is the Kansas City Chiefs is the number 1 offensive line index against the Steelers defensive line that doesn't even rank number 1. It's just solid. It's better than Kansas City's. So they're kind of going to neutralize the best thing that the Steelers can do to them and give Patty Mahomes a little bit more time back there. So the only hope, and this is why the things I'm saying are trending towards Kansas City, of course, winning. 12.5 seems fine as well. These larger spreads are usually underrated in my opinion, but we're going to take the under here. If there's one playoff game that teams are going to take, or people are going to take the under on, it's probably this one, which is scary because Kansas City is attached to it. That's why I'm ranking this number 4. But if you look at it, the only way that Pittsburgh stands any chance to actually win this game, and I don't think they will, but if they stand a chance, they're going to go out there and attempt to win the game on the road, is to run the ball. And I mean, Najee Harris in this offensive line for Pittsburgh has not been efficient at running the ball. And the Kansas City Chiefs of late, since they acquired Melvin Ingram, right? They acquired Melvin Ingram, put him on the outside, moved Chris Jones back to the interior. Their run defense has been far better, much better. The tackling has improved, right? If you're looking at the overall season stats, the Chiefs' run defense isn't that good. No. Look at it when they actually made personnel decisions. Much, much better. So I don't think the run game's going to work for the Steelers all that much, but that's going to be their goal. You keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, as cliche as it gets, and you're able to run the ball and take time off the clock. I don't think the Steelers are putting up 20 points in this game, so we're basically just trying to avoid the 30-plus point game from Kansas City. And if the Steelers don't put up 15 points, we're trying to avoid the 35-plus point game. Fingers crossed that there's no defensive scores in this one, and we'll take the under 46.5 as our number 4 ranked bet of the week. Now, the numero tres, the number 3 ranked bet of the week for me personally this week is going to be in Tampa Bay and Philadelphia, and those 2 teams also played earlier this year. Tampa Bay won 28-22, but it was so much earlier this year. Those teams are completely different teams. I mean, not even close to being a different resemblance of themselves, right? You have Godwin and Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown had 90 yards, 9 catches, and a touchdown in that game. He's no longer there. Godwin had 5 touchdowns or 5 receptions in that game. You had on the opposite side, Philadelphia not knowing that they can actually run the ball and run it successfully with their offensive line at that point. So totally different teams. The total then hit 50 points. I'm taking the under 49.5 points. I was hoping to find a 50 out there, but under 49.5 points in this game. Now, the reason I'm not ranking this higher, similar is to the Chiefs. Taking an under in the Chiefs game is terrifying. Just like last week when we took an under in the Bucs game, and the Bucs alone put up 41 fucking points. Now, this is a totally different defense they're going to be facing, where the Eagles, believe it or not, the Eagles in this matchup, and it's not by a lot, but they have the advantage on the offensive line and arguably the defensive line. Both of these defensive lines rank top 10. Neither of them rank top 5. And both of these offensive lines also rank borderline top 5. But the Eagles, when you factor in what they can do from a run blocking advantage or a run blocking perspective, it gets them over the hump, in my opinion. So we already know that Philadelphia wants to run the ball, and Tampa Bay is going to try and stop it. And Tampa Bay probably can stop it. Now, they weren't as elite as they were the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but it's still a top 10 run defense, no doubt about it. The one concern you can see in this game is if Tampa Bay does get up big, right? They get up big by 2 scores at some point in this game, and then Philadelphia is sort of forced to throw the ball, and Tampa Bay goes soft coverages. We probably don't have to worry about that until the 4th quarter. And the nice thing is, it's not like earlier in the year when Tampa Bay faced the Colts, and the Colts were able to just throw in the second half against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense has gotten healthier. They've gotten back they've gotten back basically all their starting 3 cornerbacks that were banged up, and also safety, secondary. Their coverage is healthy. The last month of the season, although some easy matchups in there, they ranked as the number 3 coverage unit. So the way that I see this game is that if Philadelphia can consistently win in the trenches, then Philadelphia is likely to keep this game under. Not likely to win, although I'll be watching with some Philadelphia fans, so, I'll be rooting for them. Why not? But I think it's going to be very interesting because of the Tampa Bay side of this one. We know that Philadelphia wants to run the ball. Tampa Bay, they were able to put up 41 points, but it was on the Carolina Panthers in the last week of the season. Tom Brady going for some records, Gronk going for some incentives, Mike Evans going for his 1,000-yard season, all that type of stuff, right, comes into play. But now if they're able to get a Ronald Jones and or a Leonard Fournette back this week, they have better personnel in the running game. And look, they're the 2 seed. If they were to win out and the Packers were to win out, they have to face them again. And the way that you beat the Packers is probably to run the ball. This team, without Godwin, without Antonio Brown, it needs to transition to a more run-first approach. They have the cheat code, though, in Rob Gronkowski. He can beat you in a zone coverage. He can beat you in a man coverage. Like, Mike Evans probably isn't going to help you all that much out when zone coverage comes. He's not going to be winning underneath consistently off the jump, right? He's a winner because he's 6'5" and 240 pounds at the wide receiver position and is agile. So I'll be interested to see if Fournette and or Ronald Jones come back this week. Do the Patriots, now that they're in the playoffs and colder weather games and physicality you with their offensive line, do they opt to run the ball a little bit more in a game that might call for it? That'll be the interesting thing, because Philadelphia is going to run the ball. If the Patriots also start running the ball a little bit, and even if they're doing it with success, it's going to keep that clock moving, right? If it's a situation where we're seeing Philadelphia running the ball 30 times and then the Patriots are getting up to the point where they're running the ball 30 times, this game is definitely going under. So under 49.5 is my 3rd ranked bet of the week. And by the way, continue to hammer. I know I like the unders here in terms of the old game totals, but continue to hammer Rob Gronkowski props. He's up to 75.5 receiving yards this week, back-to-back games of like 100+ yards. Just hammer the overs there, because it doesn't matter if a team plays a zone defense on them or they man him up with a linebacker. He is the number 1 way that they are moving the ball in this offense. It's not Mike Evans. It's definitely not C.L. Grayson, who people wanted to play last week. Hope you liked your goose egg, right? It's not Tyler Johnson. Gronk, whether it's in the red zone, if it's in between the 20s, he is the number 1 way they move the ball in zone or man defenses. Seems obvious. Continue to take the over 75.5 passing yards. If you want a free bet up to $100, it's linked down below in the description. You can get that free bet up to $100 and take that over on Gronk. All right, so now we get into my top 2 bets. And I do have a spread pick in here at some point, but I do like the over-unders in a lot of these games as well, because a lot of the money is coming in on a certain over or a certain under. And by the way, the value is on the under. There's a lot of cash coming in, but nowhere near as many tickets on that under the Tampa Bay Philadelphia game based on the early results we're getting. Now, for my second bet of the week, or my number 2 ranked bet of the week, my second favorite bet of the week for the wild card weekend, I go to the Arizona and the Rams game. Divisional matchup. 3rd time these teams are playing each other. They kind of split the series during the regular season. Arizona looked good earlier in the year. They beat the Rams right after the Rams beat Tampa, and everybody was anointing the Rams after like week 4 of the season the best team in football. But yes, since then, things have changed. They've definitely changed. I mean, Matthew Stafford has become Jared Goff. Has he not? He still has the strong arm, I know, but throwing pick sixes, throwing multiple interceptions in big games, right? It's last week against San Francisco, right? It's interesting. It's interesting here. Like, the last time he played well was arguably probably the last time that he played Arizona, when they actually ended up winning the game, kind of locked up the division to an extent. You're seeing early on right now, I have the under 50.5 here, and what you're seeing is most of the money's coming in on the over. I mean, you have 2 offenses that people know, quarterbacks in Stafford and Kyler Murray, and weapons on those teams like a Cooper Kupp and a James Conner who has 16 touchdowns, and a Christian Kirk, right? All these dudes. DeAndre Hopkins maybe is able to return. The money's going to come in on the over. Nobody's betting the under in this game, except the people who actually want to win money like us. So we're taking the under 50.5 here. And I think that the interesting thing about this game is that you just saw San Francisco come back in a game they probably shouldn't have come back, but they did. Credit to them to get into the postseason. They come back against the Los Angeles Rams, but they have a totally different personnel. They have a totally different coaching staff, a better coach in my opinion, with better schemes. And yeah, by the way, Arizona doesn't have a George Kittle and doesn't have a Deebo Samuel. And you know what? They don't have a Brandon Ayuk either, who just went over 100 yards and made it look easy in that game. As a matter of fact, they don't have anybody near those players. AJ Green, Zach Ertz, like they don't even compare to the players that I just mentioned at those same positions. Now, maybe DeAndre Hopkins can come back. I think it would be pretty damn quick for him to come back. But if DeAndre Hopkins was to come back, all right, now you're getting something back on offense. But if he's not to come back, this Arizona offense is going to remain inefficient. It is as simple. They are going to need, like they did in the Cowboys game, to win through Kyler Murray and to win through their defense. Because their offense, Antonio Wesley, AJ Green on the outside, relying on those guys against a top secondary and coverage unit and a good safety core in the Rams is not going to work out. Relying on Christian Kirk to continue to move out of the slot more and more each game and move to the outside more and more when Antonio Wesley is not on the field is not going to work. He only had 40 yards in that last game. Why? Because he does not win on the outside. He's undersized. He is fast, sure, but he wins in the slot. He is a slot receiver from college. He is great in the slot in the NFL. They're forcing him to the outside more in this air raid offense, and it's just not working out, fellas. I actually love continuing taking the under on Christian Kirk's props. They're kind of coming down, though. 55.5 is a very low number. That dude can get that on literally one play. 55.5 receiving yards. I lean the under on that one as well. You can take that, pair it up with the Gronk one, because he's just not going downfield. Even when he's on the outside, he's not winning and going downfield as much. So that's where my main concern comes in. This offense, relying on Antonio Wesley and out of position Christian Kirk and AJ Green, is not the way you want to move the ball. Now Chase Edmonds is banged up. You can put James Conner back there, but he hasn't been efficient all year. The reason in fantasy we love James Conner is because he's scoring touchdowns, 16 touchdowns, but he's only averaging like 4 yards per touch. That's not breaking anybody's back. And also, by the way, breaking anybody's back. What in the world? What in the world? Breaking anybody's back, as if anybody's ever heard that expression before. Sal, come on now, Sal. But it's not scary, right? And the Rams rank number 1 in pass rush and number 1 in run defense. What does that mean? What is the combination of number 1 in pressure rating and number 1 in run defense means? It means the opposing team is going to be in a lot of 3rd and longs. It means 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 10s are going to be on the shoulders of Kyler Murray, who I actually find it interesting that he's a plus 4.5 point underdog, even though he's the best quarterback in this game. And you can't even argue with that from this season's numbers. So the inefficiencies on Arizona's offense and the ways that I see them being in a lot of 3rd and longs and stalled drives and maybe field goals instead of touchdowns is the one reason why I like the under. The other reason why is I think the Rams are going to continue to run the ball. They just got back Cam Akers last week. Sony Michel has continued to look good. They ran the ball 27 times to 32 Stafford dropbacks in the last game. They're going to prioritize the run. They're going to continue to prioritize the run because Stafford keeps turning the ball over. Because Stafford keeps throwing pick sixes in big fucking games. The Rams offensive line is trending towards a top 10 run blocking unit as well, and Arizona ranks bottom 10 in the league in both run defense and tackling. So I'm expecting inefficiencies from the Cardinals, and I'm expecting more running attempts from the Rams, keeping the ball moving, keeping touchdowns off the board, and more field goals. We take the under 50.5 here as my second favorite bet on the week. So now for my fourth bet on the week, and I appreciate all you beautiful people out there in the streets today. We're going to go to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is actually a pretty cool city. I've been there one time, but a cool city. Cincinnati, Ohio, versus the Las Vegas Raiders, who just had a big win against the Los Angeles Chargers. Everybody saw it in prime time, a crazy game. They had to play on Sunday Night Football. Now they actually have a short week, so they play late into the night on Sunday Night Football, a short week to play on Saturday. In the early game on Saturday, that's one of the reasons, definitely not the main reason, one of the reasons I'm taking Cincinnati -6 versus the Las Vegas Raiders here. And all the public and all the people, 73% of the cash in this game is coming in on the Raiders, even though the majority of the tickets is coming in on the Bengals. So what does that mean? It means that sharp people who are putting more money down and have more confidence in it. Maybe it means that, who really knows? It could just be one guy trying to blow all his money, but it's an indicator that people who know what they're doing are on the Bengals here at -6. And it's the perfect narrative, right? It's the perfect narrative when you see the Bengals not play their starters in week 7 or week 18, and they end up not having the greatest outcome to that game. And on the opposite side, Vegas is doing everything they can, the most dramatic game, the game of the year, to get into the postseason. Everybody, all they're thinking in their head is that Vegas is better than this Bengals team, better than the 6 points they're getting, right? But then you look at it a little bit more, and Vegas so far this year is absolute dog shit on offense and defense for the most part. It's changing now that they got Waller back. They have a pass rush, no doubt about it, and Crosby up front. But the Raiders rank 28th, bottom 5 in scoreability per Cold Hard Football Facts, which what does that mean? It just means that the amount of yards they're getting, they're not scoring on them. And they're ranked 31st, second worst in bendability, meaning that they're giving up a lot of yards and giving up a lot of points. They're not able to actually bend but don't break in the red zone. And And that's not something good. That is not good when you factor in that Joe Burrow, who is playing like the MVP if you just looked at the last 2 weeks of the season that he played in week 16 and 17, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, 71% completion percentage on 95 dropbacks. He has looked absolutely unreal, and he has looked like a flawless quarterback and MVP. Yeah, they're going to have Crosby bringing the passes. That's the biggest thing, is can the Bengals offensive line, which it has for a lot of the year, hold up against this, because the matchups in the secondary against a Raiders team that historically plays one high safety. So you're going to play a one high safety now and give every play a one-on-one matchup to either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. Whichever way that Joe Burrow looks the safety off, there's going to be a one-on-one matchup there, right? I mean, every single play, you're going to have Tyler Boyd in the slot with a one-on-one match. It's just not a good setup for the Raiders. But is it enough for the Bengals to get and win by 6.5 to 7 points? I think that it is. The Bengals rank top 5 in scoreability. They're putting up a lot of yards and they're scoring. They rank top 10 in bendability. They might give up some yards, but they're not giving up much points off of those yards. The one thing here that could be concerning, right? There's one reason why I do think if you wanted to talk yourself into, if you liked the +6, and by the way, get the +6.5 if you like the Raiders. If you like the other side of this game, just make sure you get the best number. There's +6.5s out there. Get the extra half a point. Why not? But the one thing that I think could be interesting here is the fact that you are seeing in this game right now, you are seeing Waller come back. You're seeing Renfro be there. You're seeing Zay Jones develop a chemistry with Derek Carr. So what does that mean? A really good secondary, or an above average secondary from the Bengals that has played above their expectations this year. Awuzie from the Cowboys. What they're doing in that secondary is playing more too high safety looks, which limits the big play. But the Raiders aren't known for the big outside play. I mean, all of their weapons are in the middle of the field. It's Darren Waller coming back now. It's Hunter Renfro, right? Zay Jones is an outside weapon, sure, but they can beat zones. They have great zone beaters. How do you beat zones? With a really good slot corner or slot wide receiver and a good tight end. And that's exactly what the Raiders are built on. So there is a good chance that they can, the way the Bengals like to play defense historically, that they can move the ball here. So that's one reason that I'm not taking the over or under in this game, because I do think that the Raiders can move the ball. I know the Bengals can move the ball against this Raiders defense. If I leaned anything, I would probably lean the over here, but instead I'm going to take the Bengals -6, as I just think they're a more complete team overall. And man, oh man, is Joe Burrow playing flawless football right now. So there are my top 4 bets. If I had to pick a 5th bet, I'd probably choose Arizona +4.5 against the Rams. If you forced me to, I'll take the better quarterback getting the points in Kyler Murray over Stafford. That's just how I view it. But there we are. There's your ranked bets for the week. Thank you for tuning in today, you beautiful people. We're going to have content dropping every single day, not only here on this channel, but on the TikTok as well. So be sure to tune in for all of that. And before you go, if you enjoyed this content, 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button. Tell a friend to share it as well if you'd like to. And if you want a free bet up to $100 to use on player props, some of the ones we talked about in this video, there's a link in the description below. You can check it out to go to prizepicks.com. You use the code SAL, and we got you on the hookup for the playoffs. Free $100 bet, or free bet up to $100. Thank you so much. Peace out, gang. I'll see you when I see you, and I'll see you all in the next one.